Okay, it is time for my daily listen of Gone Now by Bleachers. Oh, I didn't see you there. I definitely was working on my year-end list, not listening to Bleachers. And yes, that cold open was equally terrible, and this isn't Gone Now. This is the White Album by the Beatles because Gone Now wasn't here. Hey, what is going on, guys? This is SMUB Reviews, and we are back in my original filming location, home for Christmas break, and I am ready to tell you guys what the top 10 albums of 2019 are, or at least my top 10. I'm not the definitive answer, so if you're looking for the top 10, find them yourself. But if you're looking for my opinions, here we go. So the rules with this are super, super simple. One, it had to come out in 2019. I don't do the December to December thing like most people do. It is January 1st to December 31st, and anything that comes out in that time is eligible. It has to be a full-length album, though, no EPs. Besides that, there's no real qualifications. I mean, technically, I probably would only do one per artist, but no artist had two albums that were fighting for this position, so that doesn't matter. Besides that, this year was a pretty good year for music. Honestly, there was a lot of really bleh stuff at the beginning of the year. But the more I listened to music as the year went on, the more stuff I found. This year I actually probably listened to more new artists than I ever have before and actually really just honed the genres that I enjoy. I tried to stop forcing myself to listen to genres that I just didn't enjoy very much because it wasn't my thing. Sure, sometimes I find gems in them, but ultimately I would rather focus a lot more on the genres I love. So that's what I did, and I found so much music that I enjoyed once I started doing that. So let's get to the list proper. No honorable mentions, just 10. This is the only list I'm doing because I had extreme burnout after it last year. So let's get to number 10. Now, for some people, this will be really surprising because everyone knows how much I love Jack Antonoff, but at the 10th place spot and was very close to being cut is Red Hearst's self-titled debut. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this album. It is really good, and it has super unique production. And if there's anything I can truly praise about it, it is the production. Because it takes the 80s synth alternative indie sound of Jack Antonoff and Bleachers and combines that with a really soulful Sam Dude's R&B style and Soundwave's trap production at times. It's really interesting. Honestly, these three created a really different sound that I have never heard before. And that's what I love about it. Not to mention, there are a ton of songs on this album that are just great. Red Hearst, the actual track, is one of the catchiest songs that this album has to offer besides Half Love. Half Love alone would put this album so high because it is just so different. You Make It Easy is another example of just really great harmonies from Sam Dew, and it just shows that this project has so much potential. And honestly, if all three of them want to continue pursuing it, I fully support it. I really do like what they have done together. The problem is that this album's 8 tracks. And of those 8 tracks, I'm not a huge fan of 2 of them. Honey is fine. It's not a terrible song, but it doesn't make me want to come back to it ever. And not to mention Violence, probably my least favorite song and the least streamed song on Spotify, just to prove that it wasn't really well received. Violence is just not that good at all. It's very repetitive, and it just doesn't do a whole lot. Couple that with the fact that honestly this whole album's a little repetitive, and there were just a lot of good competitors for this 10th spot, that this album really was teetering on the edge, but I just couldn't not give it to it. And it has nothing to do with the fact that Jack Antonoff is involved and I felt like I had to. It's because I love Jack Antonoff and his work, and because I like his production style, of course I was going to like it. And like I said, Half Love, Born to Bleed, Red Hearst, Everybody Wants You, You Make It Easy, all of these songs are just excellent. It's too bad that it is drugged down by 2 songs, and since that's 1/4 of the track listing, it just couldn't go any higher. The rest of these songs are so good though, and honestly, make me want to put it higher, but the 2 songs just really drag it down. Next, we have probably the most obvious pick, the one that everyone's going to put on their list, and that is Pup's Morbid Stuff, and rightfully so. This album's incredible. It is classic pop punk. Each of the band members are incredibly talented, and there's so much wit and humor in it, honestly. It's such a sarcastic album, and that's something I really love about this band. They're sarcastic, they're funny, and they're not afraid to just make silly songs, which really does work with the punk brand as a whole. Don't take yourselves too seriously. That's the ultimate goal of punk, and they really do that here. They seem like really down-to-earth people just through their music, and I really do like this album. Now, because everyone's going to put this on their top 10s, I'm not going to talk about it much more because what do I have to say that everyone else hasn't said? It's incredibly witty, it's super smart, it's catchy. I mean, I thought that I would listen to this album because each listen between this album just ended up being really long periods of time in between. It was one that just didn't ever strike the mood as frequently as some others. So I didn't necessarily revisit it every single day or every single week. But this album, every time I'd revisit it, I always expected to just remember a select few, the singles probably. But I would listen to it and I would know every single song. And that really shows how catchy and how solid of songs these are. The fact that after listening to it for what I thought was going to be a review, though it didn't get published, I didn't listen to it maybe but once every month or two, but still loved it and remembered every second of it. It's a great album, super catchy. I honestly couldn't recommend it enough. Free at Last is probably one of my favorites, but honestly, I couldn't give just one song for you guys to start with. If you like pop punk at all, I highly recommend this. This is definitely the highlight of the pop punk genre this year. I highly recommend it, like I said. Go check it out. Now, pick 8 is a very small artist. I wouldn't even know about this person if it wasn't for one of my friends. And that's Lucy Spraggan with her album Today Was a Good Day. So Lucy Spraggan's the singer-songwriter type. She's really witty. Again, we've got two really witty artists right next to each other with Pup and her. This album is just super smart. She's a great storyteller, one of the best storytellers in music, I'd say, because she's able to tell so many intricate stories that have so much depth to them and can be really moving. Some of her music on her last albums have just made me cry upon listening to it. This album, as the title suggests, is a little more optimistic. Today was a good day. It's acknowledging the bad at times, but ultimately trying to find a way to continue on. And it's an optimistic album. That being said, there definitely are the sadder moments, like End of the World, which is about a meteor hitting the Earth and killing everybody. And the storytelling, though, it's just so powerful. The Waiting Room, a song about her sitting in the waiting room waiting for an animal. I believe it's a dog, but I don't know if it's specified. That is dying, and she's waiting there, hoping that it pulls through. It's incredibly heart-wrenching. And that's what she does so well. She puts you in her shoes. This album just has so much wit to it and so much emotion behind it. Even in the lightest moments, the moments that don't necessarily mean quite as much, like Breathe, a song that's just about continuing on, like I said. It has so much raw emotion behind it. And this is another album that I just continued to think would not make my top 10, but every time I listened to it, it was so comfortably in the top 10. It was never a question the second I heard it. It's a beautiful album, and like I said, so incredibly passionate, and that's something I love, when you can hear an artist as passionate, especially an artist like Lucy Spraggan, who hasn't seen a ton of success, but continues to pump out music that's extremely well produced for how small of an artist she is. Tons of respect, extremely awesome songwriter. This is one that may have gone under a lot of people's radar, but should not have. Honestly, to recommend a song would be silly because this album does have so much quality, but I will recommend End of the World. It's one of those songs that just has one of her classic storytelling styles. It sounds like her traditional songs and just works so great. At number 7, we have Yes, 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 Yes by Honey. Honey is a band that is one of these new discoveries in 2019 for me. I have no idea what made me listen to it. No clue at all, but I'm so glad I did. Because this album really hit me with just how different it sounded. So, my best way to describe this is like a post-punk meets modern pop-punk. It's kind of strange. It's a weird combination. But I do think that the best thing to describe it would be something like a New Order meets a modern pop-punk band. I can't even think of a good example. Heck, even just a modern indie alternative band like Bad Sons, which I do hear a lot of vocal similarities between the lead singers and some stylistic similarities. This album, though, is because of that, is just genuinely unique. It takes the really strong instrumentation from the post-punk side, couples it with the super punchy, quick songs, and just super wonderful hooks that you would get with a pop-punk indie alternative song, and make something that's so new, which is perfect for me because I love both of those genres. Like, this is something curated for me, and boy was it. Lula, I'm Not Mad, I have listened to so many times. It is one of those songs that just never gets old, and honestly, that goes for the whole album. There's some songs that don't stand out quite as much, like Halloween's never stood out a ton to me. But that doesn't make it bad, it just doesn't stand out when you have songs like Change Your Mind and Saturday Nights and Ritalin. All of these songs, wonderful tracks. Definitely, if those two genres I listed are anything that you're interested in, this is an album to listen to. And I realize I've pretty much said listen to this album on every one of these, but these 10 albums I am incredibly passionate about. I love every one of them. And I definitely love this album by Honey. Okay, oh boy. This one will be a little controversial. We have my sixth pick with A Real Good Kid by Mike Posner. So let me defend myself, because I know some people will not like this album. I know some people did not like this album. I've already seen one worse list with this song, or this album on it. But I do not defend that statement. So, to give some background, Mike Posner has had an incredibly rough couple years. He lost his father, he lost a lot of close friends, his girlfriend left him. He has had a ton of really personal struggles that he's had to go through. So, during this year, 2019, he decided he would make a journey across America on foot, and he walked the entire way. Incredibly inspiring story, and I highly recommend go look up a YouTube video or an article or something that details this, because it truly is inspiring that he was able to do this. Heck, he even released an album along as he was doing it. But this is not that album. This album was released very beginning of the year, but it is just so incredibly moving, because you can hear all of that loss, all of that pain in his voice. He details it frequently, and like January 11th, 2017, that's the song about the death of his father, which he details. It's incredibly moving. It's one of those songs that I just sit and just soak in. Same for something like Drip. Drip is one of those songs where he has a friend who's addicted to some kind of substance, and he's trying to get his friend on the right track, and it's scaring him, and it's like a complete existential crisis that he has in this song. There's a ton of screaming. It's not the most sonically pleasing. And I'm not one to just say, oh, this album has some deeper meaning, so even if it sounds terrible, it deserves to be here. Honestly, it is a really good album that has some solid songs without the deep, emotional, passionate stuff. But sometimes just a song can be so moving because it is so telling of a person's emotional state, and that is this album as a whole. The whole album sounds super dissonant because there's so many different sounds. He's throwing tons of stuff. You get acoustic songs, more like singer-songwriter, folksy stuff, but then you're getting the more hip-hop, R&B leaning. You've got some more pop rock sounding songs. It's all over the place, but it just shows his emotional state. Heck, the songs will go from happy, sad, happy, sad. It just is showing what he's going through. Some people may not like it. I get that. It's not going to be for everyone, and it definitely is a really strange album. But when I listen to this album, honestly, there's just so much here for me to love. Even songs that are just super simple, just a song about moving on. The track The track Move On is just about moving on. I mean, what else is there to say? It's catchy, it's fun, it's wonderful. Stuck in the Middle, another wonderful, catchy song that is just. It doesn't even have the deepest meaning, but it just exists in a state and shows Mike Posner as he is at that time. It's incredibly moving. This album is something on another level. And honestly, number 6 up, all are very close. Yes, I was able to rank them, and I do think that this is an accurate ranking, but number 6 up are a whole new level of great than the others. The others are incredible, but Mike Posner on, it's just great music. And this album, if you can't tell by my testimony, it is incredibly moving, and every time I listen to it, it just moves me in a way that I didn't see possible, especially when you've already listened to it 10 plus times. Right at the halfway mark on this top 10, we have Arizona Baby by Kevin Abstract. So Kevin Abstract's from Brockhampton, for those who don't know, and honestly, I'll admit it, not a huge Brockhampton fan. I've tried to get into them. It's just never quite clicked, and maybe it's just the projects I've listened to, because I know that the Saturation Trilogy is what's considered the best. That is what I have not listened to. I have listened to the 2 most recent releases, and they've been fine. And there definitely are songs. One of the songs would have been on my top 10 songs of last year. But I just never really dug into them. But this album is a totally different story. And it's actually another instance of Jack Antonoff working on a hip-hop project or an R&B project that works really well and complements the artist a lot, though I don't think it's the only reason it survives. I think that Antonoff's production helps and is the cherry on top, but honestly, it's the lyricism and the just great songsmanship from Kevin Abstract himself. It's super introspective as it's dealing with a lot of personal subjects like his own queer identity, as well as him feeling guilty about like what happened with Amir Vaughn being kicked out of Brockhampton. And it's just one of those albums that work really well. Corpus Christi is a great song that is dealing with the departure of Amir from the band. And honestly, it's just it's one of those albums that is equally moving as it is catchy. It has some songs like Crumble. It's just a super catchy, really good hook. Joyride, another one. But the production here is super unique and complements it all so well. I don't have too much to say about this album, weirdly, because I don't think that there's a lot for me to say. It does so much, but honestly, a lot of what I really like about it are kind of similar to what I like about Red Hearst, but this album just does it better at times. It's got a lot of that interesting production with some really good vocals, excellent lyrics, and it just is a good album. I really do like it. I do think that Kevin Abstract is super talented, and it's a great album. Great album, highly recommend it, but what don't I recommend off this list? Someone that I did not ever expect to appear on my year-end list. Reba McEntire with Stronger Than the Truth at number 4. Now, this album, it's incredibly surprising. I have tons of respect for Reba, and not that I thought that she was a bad artist by any means, but with her 33rd studio album, you'd think that the quality would be dropping. I mean, that's kind of the case. Not many people are returning to artists that are at their 33rd album with a ton of great songs. Maybe a song here or there, but not one that's consistently amazing all the way through. But yet we get that here. Reba did a great job with this album, and that's part of why I love this album so much. Her vocals still sound great. That's, for starters, she still sounds amazing and can deliver the message that she's trying to give, which is a lot of it deals with the fact that she found out that her husband was cheating on her, and that is a huge thing in this album. This album is Stronger Than the Truth, finding out in a grocery store that her husband was cheating on her, not from him, not any other way. She found it in an incredibly impersonal way and had to deal with that information in that moment. And that sentiment that carries throughout this whole album is incredibly strong. It is a great thesis statement for an entire album, and is what propels this to be my 4th favorite album of the year. We have songs like Cactus in a Coffee Can, which is one of the best storytelling songs I've ever heard. She's on a plane and sitting next to somebody, and this person has ashes, pretty much, and I think was scattering the ashes. Ultimately tells the story about a mother that was not present during most of her life, reconnected with the child right before the mother was going to pass, and it's incredibly moving. There are some weaker moments. I'm not going to lie. Songs like "Freedom," it's just a It's just the typical like patriotic song. But there's so much great stuff here that I don't care. It's not that bad. It's just a typical patriotic song. So whatever. But there's so much other stuff here that just makes this album great. So honestly, for a woman who is well past her prime and with her 33rd album, mad respect for her being able to make this list and for putting out such a great album. This album is great. It is Miami Memory by Alex Cameron. I love it. This album is so great. It is just one of the funniest albums I have heard. He takes on a persona typically in these songs of just a really awful person, like in Stepdad, which is partially autobiographical to my knowledge. He was married and now has to be the stepdad to 7 kids, and it really takes the role of a stepfather and shows it and how awkward it can be because he wants to be a good stepfather present in the lives, but then he totally does some things that are just bad, like things that he just takes the mom's side and is like thinking that the kids are to blame for these things. It's so good and really takes that role and just shows how awkward it can be. This is one of the few instances that doesn't even necessarily paint him in a bad light, but then we have songs like Bad for the Boys where he's pretty much saying he takes the role of saying like I feel bad for all these guys getting like Me Too'd and everything. Ultimately, at the end of the song, the narrator sees the light and is like, oh yeah, these people are terrible. And then we have songs like Divorce, which shows Cameron as the ultimate loser, getting a divorce and, well, not getting a divorce, wishing to get a divorce, but is too afraid to do it. It's that ultimate, like, it's the typical stereotype where you see like elderly people joking about how much they hate their significant other, and while some of those may be just tongue in cheek, this is not. This is one of those where they do not like each other, but it shows Cameron's character just too cowardly to actually end the relationship, and just waiting for the other person. The ball's in their court, and he will not do anything. He has friends that he can just sleep on their futon couch. You're gonna have to deal with the problems because I'm gonna go sleep on my friend's futon couch. Gaslight, hilarious about, it's about a terrible subject of gaslighting a significant other, but it's just another hilarious song where it shows it from the bad person's perspective. It's a brilliant song. This album is brilliant. He has so much insight on just the way people work, and I think that it really helps this album. It's a wonderful album. To give a genre to this, it would be singer-songwriter, pop rock? I don't know how you'd best describe this. It's a hard thing to describe, but it's so witty, and it just is incredibly intelligent, and I gotta give him credit for it. All of these tracks have so much greatness in it. Far From Born Again, a song about someone becoming a sex worker, and it's just, there's so much here that's funny, that is super insightful, and honestly, I think about a lot of these songs a lot in day-to-day scenarios. Really, this is another one that I'm going to recommend, but I can't help it because it just is that great. And honestly, I don't think I can add anything new to the conversation that I didn't already say in my first review. But seriously, go listen to this album. It is funny, hilarious. You will not regret it. On to the top 2. Everyone would have seen this coming, but number 2 is Lilac Kings' Good Night. It is a post-hardcore release, and I will say up front, I do know this band. If you saw, I interviewed them earlier in the year, but that does not influence the fact that this album deserves this spot. Typically, I wouldn't even review an artist that I actually know. I wouldn't want to damage my artistic integrity, but this album deserved it. it is that good. It is solidly in this spot. It has nothing to do with the fact that I know them. It is incredibly catchy, really well written, and each of the members are so talented. I cannot stress that enough. We have songs that deal with a lot of different topics. Swallowed Whole, like about murder. We've got Don't Pretend, which is a really interesting view on mental illness, which is, it's targeting the people that are posting about it all the time on social media and seem like they might be pretending about this whole thing, or are making it up just to be popular and fit in with the trends. And they're taking away from the people that are suffering in silence, because those that are suffering are probably not the ones that are truly speaking out so vocally about it. I really think that this album has a lot of good substance to it. I mean, we see songs like Drive Me Home, one of the catchiest with a great bass line. Atrophy sees the band evolving their sound, not resting on their laurels. And it's just good songwriting. I highly, highly have enjoyed this album. I've listened to it so many times. Great, great album. Go listen to it as per all of them. Everyone knew it would be here. If you didn't think it would be number one, then you didn't watch the review. Number one is Coldplay's Everyday Life. I didn't even script this one. I tried to write minor notes on some things, and some things were just hard to note. Sometimes it's hard to just truly qualify why you love something. It's easier to say why you don't like something than why you love it, because you're going to just continue to use the same adjective saying it's great, great hooks, great vocals, whatever. I didn't even think about scripting this one because it's one of those things I feel so passionately about. Coldplay has always been one of my favorite bands, but with this album, they did something different. It bridges so many things, time periods, cultures, and it just sounds great. It's another one of those albums that really just has a lot of different sounds, but it works because it's trying to bridge all these different things. And it's like a communal effort. It isn't, I recognize that, but I feel like it is, because they've got people speaking different languages, singing in different languages, just sounds from different cultures. And that's beautiful. It's something that we really do need, and honestly, typically, this album doesn't take the down talking side. Occasionally it does, but ultimately it's more like the let's all get together and do something together and celebrate each other's differences, each other's cultures in life. And that's what I love. There is times that it doesn't, like in Guns, but Guns is a super short moment that doesn't really bother me at all. And, like, we have songs that sound like demos and unfinished, but it just kind of justifies the everyday life aspect. Is not every moment is perfect and beautiful. But that's not to say that there isn't perfect and beautiful moments like Everyday Life, Champion of the World, Arabesque, a beautiful song with excellent saxophone. It's just, it gives me shivers, it gives me goosebumps when I listen to this album. It's so beautiful, and it continues to astound me every time I listen to it. I realize that everyone may not have this. I mean, heck, I've seen a lot of reviews that are not very nice to it at all. But it is one of those albums that just moves me in a totally different way. Heck, I didn't even think I'd like it that much. I was lukewarm on Orphans, and Arabesque didn't hit me until a little later, because it just didn't quite have the same resonance with me as it currently does. But eventually it hit me, and I don't know what else to say. It is beautiful. I love the album. I love it a lot. It is an album that is definitely an amazing album, one of my favorite albums of all time, and my favorite thing that they've released, because it is just so beautiful. It's weird, it's different, it's not perfect, but yet it is, at the same time, just fully supporting the thesis of everyday life, every culture, every person's life. It's beautiful, heartbreaking, and just absolutely chilling all at the same time. And I highly recommend this listen. One where you can listen to it in whole, because it's just one of those albums that I love. It's a beautiful album. So that's the top 10. That is my 10 favorite albums of this year. It took me a lot of work. I hope you enjoy this. I really love making these videos. I love talking about my 10 favorite albums. All of them are great. I always recommend all of them. That if there was anything I said too much, it was go listen to this album. Because, I mean it, go listen to all of them. They are great. Great albums. I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't seen my other videos, there will be some new stuff coming in 2020 after a long break, probably. I'm just going to take a little break. So, wait for that. It'll come eventually. I got some thinking to do. Big channel changes. So look forward to that. Besides that, I hope you all had a wonderful holidays. Have a great new year. I appreciate you watching this video and continuing to come back to my channel. I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I appreciate it. Thank you all. Truly. And I'll see you guys later.